Howdy there, Internet students. It's Mr. Hermanson again. Today we're going to do the first lesson of 6.2 unit. This is all about linear equations. You're going to learn about three different types of linear equations. The first one is one that you should be familiar with. It is the slope-intercept form. And so this is a little bit of a review. Make sure you pay attention a lot here. Because this is the one you'll use the most, and it's probably the most important one. Okay, go ahead and do these two review problems and check back and see if you got them right. All right, so here's what I got on that. This, I hope you guys remember, that's an exponential equation. The rest are linear equations. The slope on this one is 1/5, by the way. So you may have thought because it's divided. All right, so a bamboo can grow very quickly. The graph models the growth of the bamboo plant. Find the point where the line crosses the vertical axis. That would be this point right here. What does this tell you about the bamboo plant? So that point is 0, 20. That tells you that when they first started tracking the height of this plant, so after 0 days, the plant was 20 feet high. Okay. And then just a reminder of how you find slope. You somehow need a rise and a run. So I'm seeing points like this. Make sure you watch the scale here, but I went up 10 and over 10. So the slope is 10 over 10, which equals 1. Okay? And the slope tells you that the growth rate of the plant is 1 foot per day. All right, so this is just a quick review. The number here, the 4, that's called the coefficient of the equation. But when you graph it, that coefficient tells you the slope of the line. And the 6, that's the constant of the equation. That tells you the y-intercept of the line, or the value of y when x is 0. Okay, and together, when you write an equation like this, it's called the slope-intercept form. And that's because you use the slope and the intercept to create the equation. All right, so that was just a quick review. So the equation looks like this. There's something times x. That x is your slope. And then you add a constant term, and that constant term is your y-intercept. Now, if the slope is 3 over 2, then you just do 3 over 2 times x. And you could write plus -1. I'm kind of lazy, though, and I always like to do as little work as possible, so I would just write, instead of plus -1, since adding a negative is the same as subtracting, I would just write -1. Okay? Now, on a graph, the way you're going to get the equation is you're going to do rise over run to get the slope. Notice that I went up 3 over 1, so my slope is 3 over 1. If it's over 1, we're just going to write that as the whole number 3. And then the y-intercept, I'll put a red dot there. That's where it's crossing the y-axis right there. That's -2. It's actually the point 0, -2, but often, just for shorthand, we just refer to it as -2. And then to write the equation, I'm just going to put my slope, which is 3, in front of the x. And then I'm going to add the y-intercept, or since it's a negative, adding a negative is the same as subtracting. So the equation is y equals 3x minus 2. Now, to graph an equation written in slope-intercept form, I'm going to start by identifying the y-intercept. In this case, it's -4. Remember, that's the point 0, -4, so that's right there. And then I'm going to use my slope, which is the coefficient of the equation, the 4/3, thinking of it as a fraction. If it isn't a fraction, like if it's a whole number, then make it a fraction by putting it over 1. But so remember, this is your rise over run. So from that point, -4, I'm going to go up 4. I'm going to rise 4, which brings me to the 0. And then I'm going to go over 3 in a positive direction because this is a positive slope. So I can do that again, up 4 over 3. And that's a quick way to graph that line. All right. To write an equation in slope-intercept form, we just put the slope, which in this case you're given is 1/3. We put that in front of the x. That's the coefficient of our equation. And then we have to add something to make this true. All right. Now here's how you're going to find that out if you're not given the y-intercept. The reason I know this is not the y-intercept is because x isn't 0. So, but I do know that this is an x value and a y value that will make this equation true. So I'm going to substitute -2 for y. That's this. So I put it where the y is. Then I'm going to take 1/3 times the x, which is 3, and then figure out what I need to add to make that true. And that'll be my y-intercept. Okay. So I'm going to do the multiplication. 1/3 times 3 is 1. What would I add to 1 to get -2? To figure that out, I'll just subtract 1 from both sides. -2 minus 1 is -3. Okay. So my missing number here is -3. You could just put the letter b there and then solve it for b. So -3 is equal to b. And then now I can finish writing the equation. I know that my y-intercept is -3, so I'm just going to write -3. All right. Now, what if we're given 2 points? Well, that's no big deal. If I have 2 points, I can find the slope. Remember, we have this little formula. To find the rise, you can just subtract the y coordinates. That formula looks like this. Those are just subscripts. They're nothing mathematical. So you have 2 y coordinates. Make sure you subtract them in the same direction, because subtraction is not commutative. So, so I'm going to take my 10 and my -6 and subtract those. Those are my y's. And then I'm going to take my -3 and 1 and subtract those in the same direction. So since I started with 10, I'm going to start with -3. And that equals 16 over -4, which equals -4. Okay, I now know my slope is -4. So I know the equation looks like this. -4 is my coefficient. Now I just have to figure out what the y-intercept is. That's the letter b. So it's like a missing letter. And this is an x, this is a y, so is this. I can choose either one of those points to substitute in for x and y. I like the number 10, so I'm going to put 10 where the y is, and -3 where the x is, and figure out what b has to be. -4 times -3 is +12. And so I'm just going to subtract 12 from both sides. And I find out that b is equal to -2. Okay, so I have my y-intercept now. And I can finish writing my equation. Y equals -4x plus -2 or -2. Okay, now one thing you might want to do is just check and make sure that works with the other point that you didn't use. So that would be this point here, this 1, -6. If I put 1 in for x and then calculate it, -4 times 1 is -4 minus 2 is -6. That's the y value. So it works for that also. All right, I'm going to let you try this one, and I'll show you my work, see if you get it right. Let's see if you can get it. All right, here's what I came up on that one. Hopefully you got the same thing. Okay, now in real life, the slope is equal to the rate. and the y-intercept is equal to the beginning cost, the cost at 0, or whatever the value is at 0 for x. Okay, so if we look at this, it says a plumber charges a $65 fee for repair plus $35 per hour. We can see from that that the rate is $35 per hour. Okay, so so if we wanted to write an equation where y is the total cost, we would put 35 in front of the x, because that's the rate, which is the same as the slope. And then the y-intercept is how much you would pay for 0 hours, which is the initial fee. So it's plus 65. All right, so remember now we're getting $35 for every hour. So notice how there's 65 at the very beginning, that's the initial fee. And then we're going to just keep adding on 35 for every hour. And to graph it, we're going to put our hours down here and our costs over here. And then 1 hour, 0 hours cost was 65. I'm going to guess that's about right there. 1 hour was 100. 2 hours is 135. 170. 205. And so on. I think we don't want to connect these dots because you would probably be charged for a whole hour. They wouldn't go down to halves or quarter hours. So I don't think you want to connect those. All right, well, that's it for this lesson. Go ahead and do the homework problems. And if you have any questions, message me and I'll help you with them. Good luck.